Hi guys! If you've already watched some of my videos before, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, welcome! My name is Justice Enlow and I'm the founder of Positive Period, which is an organization that helps young women get their lives back from chronic illness, specifically endometriosis. That's where we're starting. Today's video is a little bit different. My hope with this video is that if you're dealing with symptoms of possible endometriosis or even something else, that this is a video you can play for your parents and hopefully they'll take what you're going through seriously and see that maybe this is something more than just painful periods and something more than even what your doctor is making of it. When I was 15 years old was when I first started showing signs of endometriosis. They can come off very subtly, and so I didn't get the medical care that I needed for endometriosis until I was 24 years old. On average, it takes women 10 years to get diagnosed correctly with endometriosis, and in the process, they usually are misdiagnosed with several different things. Some of the things that I was misdiagnosed with are IBS, a gluten sensitivity, asthma, and several other things were suggested that I might have, like Crohn's, which they ruled out, appendicitis. I'm gonna give you guys a really short version of my story first, in case this sounds familiar, and then break it down for you. When I was around 15 years old is the first time I remember having a really debilitating period, and unfortunately, a lot of my friends had dealt with the same thing, so we all just were kind of like, I guess this is normal, this happens sometimes. And the stories that my friends told me about when they went to the ER with this pain were things I didn't want to go through, and it never ended up helping them, so I just kind of played it off as not a big deal. And then also randomly, I would just miss my period for like 3 months, and I was like, yeah, that's normal, it's because I'm thin, and yeah, that's why this is happening. And my periods also lasted a really long time, like 9 days, which I also just thought, you know, this is kind of awkward to talk about, so I'm just not gonna say anything. And whenever my doctor asked about it, I was like, yeah, everything's normal. And I legitimately had myself convinced that everything was normal. Fast forward to being in college when this started interrupting me being in classes, and I thought that I had just eaten something bad and that's why I was in so much pain, and it just happened to coincide with my period. Finally, about 3 years ago, I was competing in a beauty pageant and I had horrible cramps, and I started feeling very dizzy, like I was gonna pass out. Crawled my way out on stage essentially, introduced myself, came off stage and collapsed and ended up in the ER for 3 days. While I was there, not once did they suggest that endometriosis could be what was causing all of this pain, which is fascinating because I could directly tie the pain into my period cramps, but they insisted that it was something dietary because as soon as I went into the ER, they did an ultrasound and they said everything looks normal. When they released me, they said, you know, your ultrasound results were all clear. You just had some free fluid in your abdomen, so you probably had a cyst rupture or something, but that has nothing to do with it. Let me tell you, it has something to do with it. I went home with a bottle of pain pills. That was the only thing that they gave to me, this information that I had free fluid in my abdomen. So I spent the next several months researching, and I came across over and over again, endometriosis. And I thought, there's no way, I don't have something that wrong with me. Like, this is not a big deal. I still kept convincing myself that it wasn't a big deal and that I didn't have anything really serious going on, which is what keeps so many women from getting a proper diagnosis. And especially when your doctors are questioning you and you're not even that confident in what you're going through, you're not going to properly portray it to your doctors. I went to my gynecologist and I told him what was going on, and he said, it doesn't matter. We treat everybody with painful periods the same way, which is not the name of a disease, by the way. And he said, we put everybody on the birth control pill. So here's 3 months of birth control pills. So I went home and did some research because I was actually really excited and I wanted to see what some of the positive side effects of birth control pills were going to be. I hoped I would gain some weight and that my skin would clear up, and I couldn't find one positive review on this birth control. Not only that, but I started doing research about birth control and how it negatively affects endometriosis if that's what's going on. And I just kept praying and believing that there was going to be a solution in the process of accepting what was going on with me. My mom ended up doing some research herself and finding a specialist who specializes in a surgery called excision. And excision surgery is the same type of surgery that they do on someone who has cancer in their body. So it really removes all of the tissue as opposed to ablation. And ablation is a type of surgery where they go in and they just use a laser on the top layer of the endometriosis tissue. Excision is where they go in and they actually cut out they excise all of the endometriosis tissue. A couple months later, I was able to go in and get the surgery, and the recovery was really rough, I'm not gonna lie. It is a rough recovery and it's an expensive surgery, but it completely changed my life. He said that I had one of the worst cases he'd seen in someone my age. I had stage 4 before, and it was all the way from my diaphragm into my hip socket. My ovaries were out of place. I lost some of my intestines, and this wouldn't have been so bad had they caught it when I was 15 or 16 years old, or even when I was 20, but I was 24 when I finally had the surgery. I could have lost my fertility. I could have developed cancer from the excess estrogen in my body. Thankfully, God was in it all, and those things didn't happen, and instead I just got a little wake-up call and a passion to be able to help other people who are dealing with some of these symptoms. So the points that I want to break down for you is that painful periods are not normal. If your daughter is having painful periods and it's something that she can't push past, then that's abnormal. It's normal to have a little bit of cramping on your period, but anything that's keeping you from doing things that you love, missing school because your period, that's not normal. And unfortunately, it is common. This disease affects 200 million women, which is more women than have diabetes. It's not normal to have painful periods. It's also not normal to deal with incontinence. Bladder symptoms are a huge sign of endometriosis. I actually have interstitial cystitis, which is an autoimmune disease of the bladder, and this happens in like 50% of women with endo. So having that actually points to endometriosis. You can also have endometriosis on your bladder, which can cause similar issues. You might be thinking that if the doctor is recommending your child to be on birth control, then that's what you should do. And I would like to strongly caution you against just taking the birth control pills without doing some research. There are a lot of studies that have shown that taking birth control pills or taking these other medications that are supposed to help with endometriosis pain, I'm not going to mention names because I don't want someone to sue me. Anything that they tell you is for endometriosis pain, including birth control pills, just do some research first. I'm going to put some articles down below, and also on positiveperiod.org you can find more articles and information about this. Maybe it's just a means to an end for you. You're waiting to get excision surgery and you need to make it through high school or something like that. You know, that's something to talk about with your doctor and definitely to research. But my main point here is research these things, and it will not cure your child of endometriosis. The only thing that has a possibility of sending your child into remission from endometriosis is getting excision surgery. There's actually a great book about this topic called Beyond the Pill by Dr. Jolene Bright that I recommend. It's really, really good. Endometriosis is the leading cause of infertility in women, and the longer that you leave endometriosis unchecked, the more havoc it can wreak inside of you, meaning less likelihood of being able to conceive children later in life. If you get excision surgery, you can actually reverse a lot of that damage later on, but it's a much harder recovery. From someone who waited a long time to get excision, you want to do it sooner than later. And finally, my greatest reason that I think that you should listen to your daughter, and especially if you find out that she has endometriosis, move forward on getting excision surgery, is that if you're willing to pay tens of thousands of dollars for your child to get an education and go to college or go through a technical school or something like that, their education is going to be pointless if they're too sick to do something with it. You don't want to get in a situation where your daughter gets worse and worse while she's at university. If the education is worth the investment, then so is this surgery, because this is investing in your daughter's future, her ability to have kids someday, and her ability to have a career that's not interrupted by her body breaking down at some point. I find one reason that a lot of parents are passive about getting their children diagnosed and actually really pushing doctors for answers. Well, there's really two things that I see happening. One is that parents are intimidated by doctors and they won't actually argue with them when the doctor is telling them something that doesn't really sit right with them. My rule of thumb is that if you don't leave the doctor feeling hopeful, they didn't give you the right answer. Push for better answers from that doctor. The other thing I see is that a lot of parents are maybe prone to thinking that their child is dramatic, and so they don't believe how much pain they're in, or their child is downplaying it, and so they downplay it as well. You really have to push and make sure that your daughter is being honest with you about how she's feeling. What you really don't want is to end up someday with a daughter who's 25 years old and mad at you for not believing her for the last 10 years about what's been going on with her body. I am really fortunate because as soon as I started talking about this with my parents, they took me seriously. They helped me get the medical care that I needed. I'm very thankful, but that's not the case for everybody. If you want to learn more about endometriosis, doctors that I recommend, diet changes that I recommend, go to positiveperiod.org. I've got lots of resources there. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that it's been helpful. If you're a parent watching this, I hope that you're going to take your daughter's pain seriously and take these symptoms seriously and not just settle for maybe the easy way out, which is just putting her on birth control. Try to get to the bottom of why these things are going on and understanding that it's not normal to have painful periods. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, maybe subscribe. I have lots more content coming about endometriosis and also about pageants and just life in general. So I hope to see y'all around here again soon. Bye.